welcome to Awkward Conversations. We're Seth and Saundra Dunn. I'm glad you're with us today, and we're continuing a mini-series, is that what we're going to call it? last episode, we started with how church messed us up concepts. So, and I shared a fair bit.
Yeah.
That was kind of my thing. So Saundra's going to share more today, and I'll chime in, but we're just talking about church and the upsides and the downsides.
Yeah. So church is one of those things that, you want it to be perfect. You want it to be awesome, ideal.
Right.
But the reality is church is full of humans.
People.
Who are messed up.
Yeah.
Like, this idea of being hypocritical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Right? Like,
unfortunately,
we make mistakes, we mess up.
Yeah, we do.
So churches who are led by humans mess up. So anyway, I wanted to share a little bit about ways that church has messed me up. And I wanted to start out with, I grew up in a Holdeman Mennonite church. So in case...
if people didn't know that, they're shocked right now.
Yeah. Looking
at you.
Yeah. It was a very, very, very strict. It's basically just one step removed from an Amish. So, black caps, dresses that had to be made a certain way, a certain number of buttons, or if it was the year of the zipper, certain kind of zipper, certain length of zipper, certain hem length, like very, very strict. And there was a council that would determine every year what the dresses had to look like.
A council of men.
Yes, of course, because women could not be in that leadership role.
No.
And so I definitely have experienced very, very strict, very conservative. And then when we left the Holdeman Mennonite church, we went to a Free Methodist church, a small Free Methodist church, but it was very community oriented. It actually was probably one of my favorite because as a kid, they had afterglow, and so there was always snacks, and we would play around in the church, and it was super fun as a kid. I don't remember or know much about their theology, so I can't say too much how that church affected me. And then when we left the Free Methodist, we had moved into a new state, and we went to a small church that I cannot for the life of me remember what the denomination was. But it seems to me it was Baptist-ish.
Yeah.
And then we left that church and we did go to a Baptist church, and we left the Baptist church and we went to the charismatic non-denominational church. So I have tried and tested many churches.
It's a huge swing.
With very vastly different thoughts and belief systems. So I'm going to just start with the Mennonite church, and we can go. And
remember, many of them have probably very little connection, possibly. So don't be afraid to go into detail, I would say.
Okay.
Right?
I purposely didn't want to make this super long, but if we need to do a second one on this, we can.
Yeah, we can.
So the Holdeman Mennonite church is a very male-led, male-dominated, I would say, society. As women, we were taught, and it's so interesting because I was never like in a girls' group where I was taught this. I was never. It wasn't like you were taught these things in a classroom setting or anything.
It was just culture.
Osmosis, like you soaked in this idea and these ideas of what it meant to be a girl. And to be female. And in that church, I was very much taught that women were there to cook, to clean, to sew, to lay down for their husband whenever he wanted.
I was very diplomatic.
I'm trying to be diplomatic and not say straight out how I would say it if we were having lunch. But I was very much taught that was my role. Like, you just serve men, you lay your life down for them. They have full say of what goes on, who's going where, when, are we moving? Are we staying here? What business? Now, on the flip side, the men were taking care of all the finances, all the, things that needed done, the vehicles, all those things. So it was a very gender-specific roles.
Yeah.
But I think it was incredibly difficult because I was very much a tomboy. I didn't understand why I needed to be in the kitchen. My parents were not incredibly strict with us, but there were certain rules still. And I remember when we would have people over to the house who were not part of the Mennonite world, I would go hang out with the men. Like, I just loved being around what they were doing. It was way more interesting, way more fun. But ways that messed me up is you could never be good enough. And I say that it's interesting because I was thinking about this. Like, I learned very much in the Mennonite church that I could never be good enough. Which...
Because all value and worth was based on performance is what it came down to?
Yes.
Interesting,
yeah.
Sure.
And I could never measure up. I was never good enough.
Right.
I could never, it didn't matter what I did, what I didn't do. Like, I just could never meet all the rules.
And that was that naturally and spiritually? Pretty much?
Yeah, all the way around.
Because it was all kind of tied together, right?
Yes.
In that world?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all connected. And to be fair, there wasn't a ton of spiritual. Like, our spiritual was going to church.
Oh,
duty.
gotcha. Yeah.
Like, the women sat on one side, the men sat on the other side. So you would go to church, you'd go to your side, you would sit there properly, and you would do your duty of sitting in church.
Yeah.
We had revivals, I don't remember how often, but we had revivals that you would go through. And basically, revival was not like a refreshing of your spirit and learning how to love Jesus better.
Yeah.
It was a condemnation week. And it, like, you would go in and you'd just be hammered for a week.
And you say you don't remember how often, but that was like once or twice a year. I mean, it was fairly often.
I think it was at least twice a year.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, I interrupted there because you were saying that was like not a refreshing thing.
Right.
And so a couple times a year, you're beat down.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing too. We left the church, I was probably like 10. So you have to understand there's a lot about the Mennonite church I don't remember. But even though we left at 10, my family continued to live like we were Mennonites because it was so ingrained in my parents.
Sure.
And so we lived like we were Mennonites for years.
Yeah.
So anyway, on the one hand, it messed me up because I could never be good enough. On the other hand, looking back, I go, like, that knowing I could never be good enough is what makes me now so incredibly grateful for my salvation.
Oh.
Like,
isn't that interesting connection?
I am fully aware that I suck. Like, fully aware that I can't meet the rules, I can't meet the standard, I can't perform good enough, I can't be good enough.
Wow.
And so this reality of like, I can't do it makes my salvation, the reality that Jesus did it for me, and that I'm not going to be condemned and judged because the sacrifice is made. So it's an interesting dichotomy. Like, you don't ever want to raise your children like that.
Right.
But at the same time, this understanding that I have what I have in my love for what Jesus did for me, partially because I was raised that way. So yeah, it messed me up.
And yet it was so good.
But yet now there is an aspect to it of being thankful that I understand I can never be good enough. Like, that's just bottom line reality. So what that does then is it takes away a little bit of that like need to perform. Like, I've messed up before, I'm going to mess up again. It's fine, right?
And that's a powerful point. We don't need to sidetrack on it, but that even in the midst of that negative, some positive, some good has come out of it. You know, it's amazing how redeeming God can be.
And I think that's one of the things in the series that I hope we gather is like, church messes us up. And it might mess us up bad. I'm telling you, the things that I learned as a Mennonite woman, girl, of what my role was, it has
messed with us.
Years later, right? I got married at 19.
I know.
And even those 9 years of being out of the church, but we were still living so Mennonite-ish. But all
And I
of
had no
that,
association with that.
knew nothing about it.
Nothing. Yeah.
But I still had that Mennonite view coming
Right.
into our marriage. And so
Yeah.
I did all kinds of things as a Mennonite woman
Yeah.
that now I look back on and go, wait a minute, that's not who I'm supposed to be.
Right.
It's not what he expects me to be. But coming into our marriage, I thought he did expect that.
Yeah.
Because I just figured everybody had that mentality who was Christian. Like,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
what you do.
Yeah. It's reasonable.
So
Association
it
there.
has been it's been crazy how much
Right.
it has affected us.
Yeah, it really
and
has. Yeah.
in some
crazy.
pretty negative, difficult ways
Right.
that I'm not going to go into. But you can imagine what those are.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that I would say was a lot of the Mennonite, we couldn't have photographs. We couldn't wear jewelry. We couldn't, certainly, like, you
That's
see
something.
this and you see this and like
Couldn't
these
have hair
were all
color like
things
that.
that was
No.
terrible. Like
These are mortal
and-
sins.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You're not
it-
even wearing a dress today.
I'm not wearing a dress. I'm wearing a fair bit of jewelry. I have way too many piercings as well as tattoos. And,
Yeah.
so it definitely messed with me in that for years and years and years until I was about 30. I was trying to prove to God that I'd be good enough.
Wow.
I read my Bible every single day. I prayed every day.
Just to measure up.
And everybody's like, oh, that's so honorable. No, not when it's done out of a position of, I have to do this in
Yeah.
order to measure up, in
Right.
order to be good enough.
Yeah.
That's not valuable.
It's not
I mean, do I know the Bible? Yeah. I know you start in on almost any scripture, I can finish it, like, of course. But when you're doing it from a position of needing to perform,
Yeah.
that is very damaging.
Sure
And
it
it
is.
wasn't until I was around 30 that I was like, I actually experienced what it felt like to be born again. Because at that point I was like,
Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah.
like God's not waiting for me to perform to be good enough to accomplish anything.
That I don't know that you want to do that now. Maybe that's in another episode, but that's a beautiful story. That moment you just mentioned, the story of how that happened is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the freedom it brought in.
The freedom it gave me, and even after that, I mean, I struggled still being a rule
Sure.
follower, and then
Sure.
I had a friend come along and help me break some rules, and that made me go, it's okay. I am actually really, truly, deeply loved.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so it changed my perspective of my
Right.
salvation.
Yeah.
And now I'm incredibly grateful for it.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Keeping in mind, and I know I've said this, I think in the last episode, that when you say church has messed me up, that's not the same thing as saying God messed me up.
yes.
And it's to your point earlier that church is made up of men. So God is the beautiful piece in all of this.
Yeah.
Right? No matter
Yeah.
how good or bad or
Yes.
indifferent the situation is, church or even outside of church.
Yeah.
God's the redeeming,
Right.
loving,
Absolutely.
beautiful factor that can work with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God has not messed me up. God has saved me.
That's good.
Right? God has
That's
saved
good.
me.
Yeah.
Church has messed me up and given me ideas about identity that are absolutely not true.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the piece that I hate is when churches tell you
That's so
who
good.
you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be, but it's
Right.
works. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a heart work, it's a performance
Yeah,
work.
it's a behavior, it's a measuring.
And
up,
when
it's
you
a-
begin
yeah.
to understand and learn that it's a heart work,
Yeah.
then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is how God redeems, how
Right.
God changes us.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so good.
So
Yeah.
that would be my perspective on
That's good.
the Mennonite church.
Yeah.
Free Methodist Church, like I said, just was a lot of fun for me as a kid.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of negative experiences there. They were very community focused, so we hung out a lot. My parents had friends over, played games.
Yeah.
It was just a really good season of my life. And then
Yeah.
when we went into the small church when we moved, it was good. I still was functioning very much out of performance. All of my high school, my whole, up until, like I said, up until I was 30, I was in performance mode.
Of course.
I was a very good little girl. I was a Miss Mary Sunshine. I was church lady all through high school. So all those things were definitely part of my performing, my measuring up.
Yep.
Then when we went to the Baptist church, it wasn't interesting. I've never thought about that. It wasn't a massive change from the Mennonite, like the ideas and the theology. Now, I know anybody watching who's Baptist or Mennonite would be like
hold on.
Yeah, that's not true. No, I understand that. But for me, the Baptist church, you still had the risk of losing your salvation.
Okay.
You still better perform.
Okay.
You still needed to measure up. You still had to do all the right things.
Yeah.
And God was still mostly mad at you.
Because he was judging all that.
Because when you are raised in that idea of needing to measure up and needing to be good enough, it very much is that space of God is the judge.
Yeah.
So he's always mad at you. Like, it's never enough.
Because you're never measuring up, so how can he not be just always mad?
Yeah.
Wow.
So in the Baptist church, it was, I would say, more of the same, right?
Okay.
And again, I'm not dismissing anybody who's Baptist watching this. Like, I get it. My viewpoints were coming out of the Mennonite church. In fact, when we went into Bible school, after high school, when I went into Bible school, I had that mentality even there that I needed to measure up. And so everything they said, that was my, you know, when you're raised on this side of the mountain, it doesn't matter where you go, you're still looking at things from this side of the mountain. And I still saw things from that side of the mountain. So even in my charismatic years, both part of high school and at Bible school, even in those years, in that charismatic world, I was still seeing things as judgment, as trying to measure up, as trying to be good enough, not being good enough, not performing well enough. And so even in a charismatic world where we're taught about, you know, being free in Christ and the grace of God and all these things, for me, it was still works. It was still performance. It was still measuring.
Still earning it.
So that was just a theme for me because that's how I was trained. Yeah. And so that theme lived in me.
Until something had to break that. Yep. Right. I mean, that's a big shift to go from understanding I am valuable simply because we say it this way today, the finished work of the cross has made me acceptable to God. You've removed all performance at that point. And what a massive shift. Yeah. And it doesn't happen.
Interestingly enough, what made that real for me was Galatians. Yeah. And the message that I heard the night that my brain went, what? Wait a minute. What? Was a man, Dave Duell, who was sharing about Galatians 3 and 4, the difference between the slave woman and the free woman. Sarah was the free woman. Yeah. What was her name? Was the slave woman. But the difference of like, why are you leaving the gospel to go to another gospel that isn't a gospel at all? Right. Like that was profound for me. Right. All of a sudden I'm like, I've been living in a gospel that isn't the gospel at all. That is about performance and works and judgment and wrath and anger and a terrible place to be. Whereas understanding that I'm in the gospel, which is good news, freedom from the law because the law's been fulfilled, not because now we just get to live like an idiot. No, that's the problem. Like when we say, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. Sure you can if you want to be an idiot, right? Like bottom line, some of the things that are established most all in the law. Like they're established for our good. Yeah. And now you get to perform it out of a heart that is like, I don't have to do that. Right. I'm free. Right. And so I'm not subject to sin. I'm now free to live
Which actually empowers you then.
Absolutely.
To live well.
Well, also it just makes your life.
From a whole different motivation.
Like, all of a sudden, I love God.
Yeah.
I love Jesus.
He loves you.
Because he's not mad at me. I'm not having a lightning bolt over my head 24/7. I kid you not. As a kid, I would go to bed and I would pray.
Yeah.
I'm little.
Yeah.
I would pray, God, please forgive me of all of my sins that I committed today. Even though as a little kid, like, I don't know what they are. I don't know what I did wrong, but I know I did stuff wrong today. So I would pray, please forgive me of all my sins, because I was terrified I would die in my sleep and go to hell because of the sins I committed that day.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was very much a catch for me too, like looking back at that and realizing as a child, the fear I lived under of I'm going to die and I'm going to go to hell because God's mad at me. Yeah. Because I didn't do well enough today. Yeah. And the weight of that. It was like so weighty, so crazy to think about. So now being free of that is an amazing, and it makes me truly, deeply love God, love Jesus, love my relationship, love my Bible, love the life that I have, the spiritual impact that I've had on me, the impact that's been made on me, to the impact I can make on others because of the freedom. So if you're not familiar with the book of Galatians what it talks about, and that is a dig in full switch, because it's the gospel of what man teaches, the gospel of, it's not the gospel, because the gospel is good news, but it's the gospel of do, perform, do these, God's going to be mad at you. That versus the true gospel, which is the gospel of what Jesus came to give us, the good news, the freedom, the ability to live to the full. It talks a lot about freedom in Galatians, and I love that word. I love that concept. I love what we get to have that freedom. In Romans it says it was for freedom that you were set free, right? I mean, those concepts come out in multiple books, that we're set free to be free, right? And we're not set free to be under bondage. We're set free to be free. And you said it well, but that doesn't mean you just live however you want to live. I mean, the Bible's chock full of amazing ways to live, right? But now you're free to do that from a foundation of love. At this point, one of the things I love is I'm free to do what's in my heart to do. So I am free to do whatever I want. You are free to, I'm not going to go sin because I recognize the foolishness of that. Foolishness of it, But I am going to live free in doing what's in my heart to do, because I have a new heart, because I've been redeemed, because I've been made new. So the way the church messed me up is the perspective of God, how I viewed God for years, his anger, his wrath, his judgment. And now, having come out of that, I know that was not right. And so I would say that's one way. And the thing about it is, when you see God that way, it goes into every area of your life. It affects every piece and part of your life. Which that statement's actually true on both sides of this. Absolutely. It's true if you see him as a vengeful, mean, vindictive, or if you see him as loving, caring, compassionate, wanting to work with you to live a great life. It's both sides. It filters into everything. Every piece and part of your life it affects. Yeah. So that's really good. Thank the Lord. Wow. That he has given us freedom, that he's given us the true gospel, that he has given us life and life abundant, that he has given us everything we need pertaining to life and godliness, that he has given us his righteousness. He's given us the mind of Christ. He's given it, I can just go through all these promises of what he's given us. And I'm so thankful to see that and know that at this point. So I guess if you're watching this and it strikes a chord with you, go to Galatians. Yes. I mean, there's other places, but Galatians so speaks to some of these issues. If you maybe were also raised or have been in a very legalistic kind of structured performance, you can say it a number of ways, but if you haven't been walking, living under the freedom of the gospel, right, then Galatians is a great place to go to begin to renew that mind to truth and to the true gospel. And feel free to reach out. Like, I'm happy to
of course.
talk to you and give thoughts and input.
Amazing resources, all kinds of good stuff out there. So, and you know what? We still go to church.
Yes. Yes.
And find life in it, right?
And we do. And it's so interesting.
And so should you.
When you realize the switch.
You do, yeah.
You have your mind renewed to the truth of the gospel, then it helps you. Now I'm not on this point on the mountain, right? Now I'm on this side of the mountain.
Right.
So that whatever church I'm in, like I visit Presbyterian churches now, I visit charismatic churches, I visit like lots of different churches. And it's not like, there's plenty of things I don't agree with.
Well, but you don't expect church to be perfect anymore.
I don't expect church to be perfect. And I also almost always find something that is like substantive.
Absolutely.
To take home, to meditate about, to learn from.
One of the key things about church is as we gather together.
Yeah.
Can I say it this way? Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So I hear somebody say something, I'm like, oh, okay, now scripturally, how does that apply? And it's a new thought, and it stirs something different. You're not going to have that if you're not part of church.
And I just want to close this out by saying, church is vastly important.
It is.
The key is,
no question,
find a church that actually teaches the true gospel.
Yeah.
Find a place that you know. This is the gospel, the good news.
Yeah.
And
interact with people
and
that
plug in. Like, don't just go. Like, be a part.
Yeah. Build relationships. Get to know people.
Massively important, and I believe actually is going to be more and more important as time progresses. So, if you're not in church, get to a good church.
Yeah, jump in. Jump in.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it. For today.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching. Appreciate you all, and it's a joy bringing these videos, and what fun would it be if nobody was watching? So, thank you. Thank you so much for watching our videos. We would ask that you please like and subscribe. We want other people to be able to find these videos and this content, so please ring that bell, like and subscribe. Thank you.